In kitchens across the country, Grandma's worn recipe cards held more than just instructions. They carried decades of wisdom, love, and the simple magic of making do with what was on hand. Today, we're dusting off those cherished dishes, honoring the quiet heroes whose kitchens fed families through good times and tough, and reminding ourselves why these recipes deserve a comeback. Classic meatloaf with a brown sugar glaze. There's nothing quite like the smell of classic meatloaf baking, where savory ground beef meets the sweet tang of brown sugar and ketchup, filling the house with the promise of comfort. This dish, a mid-century staple born out of Depression-era necessity, was Grandma's go-to for feeding a family on a budget. Stretching ground beef with breadcrumbs, onions, and eggs created a tender loaf, while a splash of Worcestershire sauce added a subtle savory note. What makes this meatloaf truly special is its glossy brown sugar glaze, a simple mix of ketchup and brown sugar that caramelizes beautifully in the oven, forming a sticky, irresistible crust. The magic starts by sautéing onions until soft and sweet, then gently combining them with the beef, soaked breadcrumbs, eggs, and seasoning. Careful not to overwork the mix, you shape it into a loaf and place it in a baking dish. Next comes the glaze, spread thick over the top. As it bakes, the glaze bubbles and crisps, creating that classic shiny finish. When it's done, the kitchen smells like home, warm and inviting. After resting a few minutes, slice into the meatloaf to reveal a juicy, tender inside, wrapped in that sweet, crackling crust. Serve this nostalgic favorite with creamy mashed potatoes and green beans for a meal that's more than just filling. It's a hearty taste of history. This classic meatloaf is a reminder that sometimes the simplest, most humble recipes are the ones that carry the most love and deserve to be on our tables again. Creamed chipped beef on toast, SOS. Creamed chipped beef on toast, affectionately known as SOS, might raise an eyebrow, but don't let the nickname fool you. This humble dish carries a surprising comfort and history in every creamy bite. Often called sheet on a shingle, it made its way from military mess halls to home kitchens, where frugality met flavor. When fresh meat was scarce, dried beef stretched meals, combining with pantry staples to create a warm, satisfying dish. Picture a chilly morning, the kitchen quiet except for the soft stir of a creamy skillet. Creamed chipped beef features tender, salty bits of dried beef swimming in a rich white sauce that blankets buttered toast like a warm hug. It's simple but hearty, a breakfast that prepares you to face the day, no matter how tough. To make it, start with dried beef, usually pre-sliced and salted, a pantry throwback from another era. Melt butter in a skillet, then whisk in flour to form a roux, the base for the creamy sauce. Slowly add milk, stirring constantly until thick and velvety. Toss in the chopped dried beef, letting the salty pieces soften in the sauce. Season lightly with black pepper. No salt is needed since the beef is salty enough. The sauce should be thick, but smooth enough to coat a spoon. Meanwhile, toast slices of white or wheat bread, buttered if you like. Spoon the creamy beef mixture over the toast, enjoying the satisfying contrast between crunchy bread and silky topping. Though a throwback, creamed chipped beef on toast is a tasty reminder that simple ingredients can create something special. A dish born from thriftiness, it's comfort food that deserves a comeback, one creamy spoonful at a time. Tuna noodle casserole. Tuna noodle casserole is a mid-century miracle, a pantry-friendly, comforting dish that warmed countless family tables in the 1950s and 60s. Grandma might have whipped this up on a busy weeknight or brought it to church potlucks, where the secret was always in the crunchy, golden topping. Imagine a bubbling casserole fresh from the oven, steam rising as tender egg noodles peek out from beneath a creamy blanket of mushroom soup and flaky tuna. The buttery breadcrumb or crushed cracker topping crackles delightfully, offering a satisfying contrast to the silky filling. Its humble ingredients turned into everyday luxury, a warm hug on a plate. The magic starts with simple pantry staples: egg noodles, canned tuna, cream of mushroom soup, and frozen peas. Egg noodles provide tender bite. Tuna adds savory richness. Mushroom soup brings creamy earthiness, and peas add a pop of sweet color. The topping, whether buttery breadcrumbs, crushed crackers, or even potato chips, adds that irresistible crunch. To make it, boil egg noodles until just tender and drain. Gently fold noodles with drained tuna, thawed peas, and a generous helping of cream of mushroom soup. A splash of milk loosens the mixture without making it soupy. Season lightly with salt and pepper, mindful that tuna and soup bring plenty of saltiness. Pour the mixture into a greased casserole dish and spread evenly. top with buttery crumbs, and bake until the topping crisps and the filling bubbles with warmth. The kitchen fills with that classic comfort food aroma, creamy, warm, and nostalgic. Serve with a crisp green salad or simple steamed veggies for balance. This casserole is proof that sometimes the simplest ingredients, stitched together with love and a little kitchen magic, make the best meals. Jell-O salad with fruit and marshmallows. Step back into any mid-century family gathering, and you'd likely spot a shimmering Jell-O salad brightening the table. More than just a salad, it was a celebration in a bowl, wobbly, colorful, and full of sparkle that made potlucks and parties feel festive. Grandma called it a vegetable, thanks to the canned fruit inside, but the real charm came from the playful mix of sweet gelatin, juicy fruit, and pillowy marshmallows that melted in your mouth. Jell-O salads might seem curious today, but back then, they were showstoppers, simple pantry staples transformed into something special. Flavored gelatin, whether cherry, lime, or orange, added nostalgic cheer and endless creative possibilities. To make it, dissolve gelatin powder in boiling water until clear, then stir in canned pineapple chunks, mandarin oranges, and mini marshmallows just before chilling. The fruit adds juicy sweetness and tang, while marshmallows bring a soft, fun contrast to the jiggle. For an indulgent twist, some fold in cream cheese or whipped cream, turning the salad creamy and dreamy without heaviness. Just fold gently so marshmallows keep their shape. Pour the mix into a pretty glass bowl or cups, then chill until it sets with that classic wobble. The bright colors and soft textures make it almost too pretty to eat. But once you do, it's a sweet, nostalgic treat that recalls Sunday dinners, church socials, and potlucks where everyone shared a dish. Though it may seem like a relic, Jell-O salad reminds us cooking was once about fun and bringing people together. Next time you want a lighthearted, sweet, and slightly silly dish, give this one a whirl. It's a charming taste of the past that deserves a comeback. Chicken and dumplings. Few dishes embody home-cooked comfort quite like chicken and dumplings. It's the kind of meal that fills the kitchen with warmth and makes you want to curl up in your favorite chair with a steaming bowl. For generations, this hearty stew has been a Sunday supper favorite, especially in farmhouses and country kitchens where nothing went to waste and every meal was crafted to feed both body and soul. Chicken and dumplings come from a tradition of simple, humble ingredients, transformed by time and patience. Tender pieces of chicken simmer slowly in a rich broth, infusing the stew with deep flavor, while soft, pillowy dumplings float on top like little clouds, soaking up all that goodness. It's the ultimate comfort food, the dish that turns cold evenings into warm memories. To make it like Grandma, start with a whole chicken or bone-in pieces. These give you a broth full of flavor and body. Simmer the chicken gently in water, with a few aromatics like onion, celery, and a bay leaf, letting the steam fill your kitchen with promise. Once the chicken is tender, remove it and shred the meat, saving the broth for the stew base. The dumplings are a simple mixture of flour, baking powder, salt, and milk, stirred just enough to bring it together into a soft dough. No fancy rolling pins needed, just spoonfuls dropped gently into the simmering broth. As they cook, the dumplings puff up, becoming light and tender, soaking in the savory broth around them. Return the shredded chicken to the pot, season with salt, pepper, and maybe a pinch of thyme or parsley for a fresh note, and let everything meld together. The result is a thick, creamy stew that feels like a warm embrace on a cold day. Chicken and dumplings remind us of a time when meals were made slow and steady, when every bite was a celebration of thrift and care. It's a dish born from making do, but elevated by love, one that invites everyone to the table and fills hungry hearts. Serve it up with a simple green vegetable or a crusty slice of bread, and you have a meal that feels timeless. This is not just food, it's a memory made edible, a reminder that sometimes the best dishes are the ones that take their time, simmer slowly, and fill the house with the smell of home. Liver and onions. Liver and onions. Now there's a dish that carries a certain old-school charm, and perhaps a bit of a challenge for modern palates. But for Grandma, this was a humble, nourishing classic, a dish born out of frugality and a keen sense of making every bite count. Liver was often overlooked today, but back then it was prized for being affordable, packed with nutrients, and a solid staple in many households. Picture a sizzling skillet on the stove, the sweet aroma of caramelized onions wafting through the air, mingling with the earthy, rich scent of seared liver. This dish isn't fancy, but it's honest food, hearty and satisfying, a reminder that great meals don't always come with frills. To make it like Grandma, start with fresh beef liver, sliced thin and soaked briefly in milk to mellow its strong flavor and tenderize the meat. Meanwhile, slice onions thick and cook them slowly in butter or bacon fat until they become soft, golden, and sweet, the perfect foil for the liver's robustness. Dust the liver slices lightly with seasoned flour, just a sprinkle of salt and pepper, and then sear them quickly in a hot pan. The goal is to cook them just enough to keep them tender. Overcooked liver turns tough and chalky, and nobody wants that. As the liver cooks, the onions continue to soften and caramelize, developing that deep, sweet flavor that balances the dish beautifully. Once plated, the contrast of the tender, flavorful liver with the meltingly sweet onions makes for a hearty meal that feels like it was made with care and thrift in mind. Served alongside mashed potatoes or buttered noodles, liver and onions was a dinner that stretched the grocery budget and packed the table with nourishing goodness. This dish is a true reminder of the resourcefulness that shaped family kitchens, where wasting food was unthinkable and every cut had its place. While it might not be the first recipe that comes to mind today, liver and onions has a place in the story of home cooking, and it deserves a comeback for those willing to give it a try. So, if you're curious about tasting a dish that's rich in history and flavor, give this one a whirl. It's a humble, honest meal with a deep connection to the past, and if Grandma loved it, maybe you will too. Potato pancakes, latkes. Golden, crispy, and smelling like a kitchen full of love. That's the magic of potato pancakes, or latkes, as they're known in Jewish households. These humble little cakes are a celebration of simplicity, transforming a handful of grated potatoes into a crunchy, tender treat that's as much a part of holiday traditions as they are a comfort food for any day of the week. For Grandma, potato pancakes meant gathering around the stove, the sound of sizzling oil mingling with laughter and stories. Potato pancakes are a perfect example of resourcefulness meeting deliciousness. In times when every scrap of food was precious, grated potatoes stretched with onions, eggs, and a little flour became a crispy, satisfying meal that could stand alone or be a sidekick to a heartier dish. Their roots run deep in Eastern European kitchens, and they've since traveled the world, bringing people together over their irresistible crunch. To start, you'll grate raw potatoes and onions, both adding texture and a little bite, and then squeeze out as much moisture as possible. This step is key because the drier the mixture, the crispier your pancakes will be. Next, eggs and a little flour bind everything together, turning the grated mixture into a batter that's just sticky enough to hold shape when dropped into hot oil. Heat a generous amount of oil in a cast iron skillet or heavy pan, the kind that retains heat well, then carefully spoon the batter in, pressing it gently to form thin rounds. The sizzle is the soundtrack of nostalgia, as each pancake crisps up to a beautiful golden brown on the outside while staying tender inside. Once fried, the pancakes drain on paper towels to shed excess oil, then come straight to the table, often accompanied by sour cream or applesauce. The contrast of crispy, savory cakes with a cool, tangy dollop or sweet fruitiness is part of what makes this dish so special. For many families, potato pancakes are tied to celebrations like Hanukkah, where the frying in oil carries symbolic meaning, but their appeal goes far beyond holidays. They're proof that simple, humble ingredients can become something truly memorable. So, whether you're making them for a festive occasion or just because, these potato pancakes are a crispy, golden reminder of kitchens filled with warmth, tradition, and the joy of sharing good food. Old-fashioned beef stew. Nothing says home like a bubbling pot of old-fashioned beef stew simmering gently on the stove. This is the kind of dish that fills the kitchen with rich aromas of tender beef and earthy root vegetables, coaxing everyone to gather around the table for a meal that feels like a warm, hearty hug. For generations, beef stew has been a go-to recipe when the days grow short and the nights get chilly. A one-pot wonder that's as economical as it is comforting. Back in Grandma's day, stew was more than just a dinner. It was a way to stretch tougher cuts of meat and use up whatever vegetables were on hand. The magic is in the slow simmer, where chunks of beef transform from chewy to melt-in-your-mouth tender, and the broth thickens into a rich gravy that coats each spoonful in savory goodness. It's a humble dish, but one that stands tall on any dinner table. To recreate this classic, start with stew beef, usually cuts like chuck or round that needs slow cooking to soften. Brown the meat first in a heavy pot to build flavor, letting the caramelized crust add depth to the stew. Then add chopped onions, carrots, celery, and potatoes, each root vegetable bringing its own sweetness and texture to the mix. The secret to thick, luscious gravy lies in a simple flour coating or a bit of cornstarch stirred in near the end. But mostly, it comes from patience. Cover everything with rich beef broth, season with salt, pepper, and a bay leaf or two, and let it simmer gently for at least a couple of hours. The slow cooking not only tenderizes the meat, but also melds all the flavors into a cozy, comforting whole. When the stew is ready, the beef should be tender enough to cut with a fork, and the vegetables soft, but not mushy. Ladle it into bowls, maybe sprinkle with a pinch of fresh parsley, and serve it with warm, crusty bread to soak up every last drop of that savory sauce. Old-fashioned beef stew is the kind of meal that brings people together, warms cold hands and hearts, and reminds us of the simple, honest pleasures of a home-cooked dinner. It's a dish that tells stories of hard work, thrift, and love poured into every pot. And best of all, it's just as satisfying today as it was back then. Baked macaroni and cheese. Few dishes evoke childhood memories quite like baked macaroni and cheese. It's the ultimate comfort food, creamy, cheesy, and topped with a golden crust that crackles with just the right amount of buttery crunch. This humble casserole has been a staple of family dinners for decades, a dish that's as much about nostalgia as it is about satisfying hungry appetites. Back in Grandma's kitchen, macaroni and cheese wasn't just a side dish, it was often the star of the show. It was affordable, filling, and endlessly adaptable. Whether it was made from scratch with a homemade cheese sauce or jazzed up with a can of processed cheese, it brought smiles to the table and kept everyone coming back for seconds. To start, cook elbow macaroni until just tender, then drain it well. No one wants mushy noodles in their mac and cheese. While the pasta cooks, make the cheese sauce by melting butter in a saucepan and whisking in flour to create a smooth roux. Slowly add milk, stirring constantly until the sauce thickens into a velvety blanket ready to hug every noodle. Next comes the star of the show, the cheese. Sharp cheddar is classic, lending that tangy, rich flavor that's the hallmark of true comfort food. Stir the shredded cheese into the sauce until it melts completely, forming a creamy, gooey mixture. Combine the cheese sauce with the cooked macaroni, then pour it into a buttered baking dish. The magic touch is the topping, a sprinkle of breadcrumbs tossed with a little melted butter, spread evenly over the casserole. This topping bakes into a crisp, golden crust that contrasts perfectly with the creamy noodles beneath. Bake the casserole until the top is bubbly and browned just right. The kitchen fills with the smell of melted cheese and toasted breadcrumbs, a scent that can turn a house into a home. Let it cool for a few minutes before serving, so the sauce thickens slightly, making every bite luscious and satisfying. Baked macaroni and cheese is more than just a meal. It's a memory, a symbol of family dinners, and the kind of warmth that only food made with care can bring. Whether it's served alongside meatloaf or enjoyed on its own, it's a dish that belongs on every dinner table, one that never goes out of style. Ambrosia salad. Ambrosia salad is the kind of dish that makes you smile before you even take a bite. A fluffy, sweet fruit salad that feels like a celebration in a bowl. It's a mid-century party favorite, especially popular in southern kitchens and at holiday tables, where it adds a light, refreshing contrast to richer fare. Grandma's ambrosia was always a highlight, with its playful mix of textures and flavors that somehow felt indulgent and wholesome all at once. The name ambrosia comes from ancient Greek mythology, the food of the gods, fitting for a salad that feels like a heavenly treat. It's a nostalgic reminder of when gelatin salads and whipped creams ruled the table, and cooks made magic with canned fruit and marshmallows. The result is a sweet, creamy concoction that's both simple and delightful. To make ambrosia salad like Grandma did, start with a mix of canned mandarin oranges and pineapple chunks, drained but juicy enough to keep things fresh and vibrant. Add shredded coconut for a touch of chewiness and tropical flavor, and mini marshmallows for a little burst of sweetness and softness that melts on the tongue. The creamy base is typically made with sour cream, whipped cream, or a blend of both, depending on how rich you want it. This creamy element wraps around the fruit and marshmallows, binding everything together into a light, airy salad that holds its shape but still jiggles just a little. Some versions include chopped nuts like pecans or walnuts, adding a welcome crunch and a bit of earthiness to balance the sweetness. It's an optional touch, but one that can elevate the salad from simple to sublime. Once everything is folded together gently, because no one wants squashed fruit or melted marshmallows, the salad chills in the refrigerator for a few hours. This gives the flavors time to mingle and the salad time to set just enough. so every spoonful is cool, creamy, and bursting with fruitiness. Ambrosia salad might seem like a relic from a bygone era, but it's a dish that deserves to come back for its joyful spirit and the way it brings a little sunshine to the table. It's perfect for potlucks, holiday meals, or anytime you want a sweet, nostalgic treat that's as fun to make as it is to eat. So go ahead, dust off that vintage recipe card, open a can of mandarins, and give ambrosia salad a whirl. It's a little bowl of happiness from Grandma's kitchen to yours. Ham and bean soup. There's something quietly comforting about a steaming bowl of ham and bean soup, a dish that speaks of thrift, warmth, and the art of making the most out of leftovers. For Grandma, this soup was a masterclass in resourcefulness, taking a ham bone saved from a holiday meal and turning it into a pot full of hearty, soul-soothing goodness. It's a recipe born from humble beginnings, stretching ingredients to feed families and turning simple staples into a rich, flavorful broth. Ham and bean soup is a tradition in many homes, especially in rural kitchens where nothing went to waste. Dried beans, soaked overnight and slow-cooked until tender, become creamy and soft, soaking up the smoky, savory flavors of the ham. The soup is thick enough to be filling, but still brothy enough to warm you from the inside out on a chilly day. To start, you'll need a ham bone or leftover ham pieces. These are the flavor powerhouse of the soup. Along with the ham, dried beans, navy beans or great northern beans are classic choices, are soaked overnight to soften and then simmered gently. The long cooking process transforms the beans, melding their earthy flavor with the smoky richness of the ham. Chopped onions, carrots, and celery add a sweet, aromatic base, slowly softening in the pot and layering flavors as they mingle with the beans and ham. Bay leaves lend a subtle depth, and a few twists of black pepper add just the right kick. Salt is usually added toward the end, since the ham already brings plenty of seasoning. The key to this soup is patience, letting it simmer slowly for hours, stirring occasionally until the beans are tender and the broth thickens into a velvety, savory elixir. The meat should fall off the bone and shred easily, infusing every spoonful with smoky goodness. When it's ready, the soup is ladled into bowls, often served with crusty bread or cornbread to soak up the flavorful broth. It's the kind of meal that feels like a warm embrace after a long day, filling bellies and hearts alike. Ham and bean soup is a delicious reminder of the past, of kitchens where no food was wasted and every meal was made with care. It's a recipe worth bringing back to today's table, a true taste of home and history in every bowl. Classic deviled eggs. Few dishes capture the spirit of a family gathering quite like classic deviled eggs. These little halves of creamy, tangy, savory goodness have been gracing picnic tables, holiday buffets, and potluck spreads for generations, earning their place as a timeless favorite. For Grandma, deviled eggs were more than just a snack. They were a way to turn simple boiled eggs into a bite-sized celebration of flavor and tradition. The name deviled might sound mischievous, but it simply refers to the bold spices mixed into the creamy yolk filling that make these eggs irresistible. The recipe is straightforward, but the secret lies in getting the yolk filling just right. Smooth, flavorful, and with that perfect balance of tang, creaminess, and a hint of heat. To make classic deviled eggs like Grandma's, start with eggs boiled just right, not overcooked, so the yolks remain bright and tender. Once cooled, peel them carefully, slice them in half, and scoop out the yolks into a bowl. Mash the yolks with mayonnaise, a touch of mustard for a little zing, and a dash of salt and pepper. Some families add a splash of vinegar or pickle juice to brighten the flavor, giving it a subtle tang that cuts through the richness. Once the filling is perfectly creamy and smooth, it's spooned or piped back into the egg whites, creating neat little mounds of golden goodness. The final flourish is a sprinkle of paprika, a touch of smoky color that's as much about presentation as it is about flavor. Deviled eggs are endlessly customizable. Some folks like to mix in a bit of chopped pickle, celery, or onion for extra crunch and flavor, while others top theirs with a sliver of olive or a sprinkle of chives. But no matter the tweaks, the heart of the recipe remains the same, a simple, satisfying bite that brings people together. These eggs have a long history, showing up at celebrations and family dinners alike, prized for their ease, flavor, and the fact that they're easy to make ahead and serve cold. They're perfect finger food for summer barbecues or holiday gatherings when you need a little something special without fuss. So next time you're planning a gathering, don't overlook the humble deviled egg. With just a few simple ingredients and a little care, You can bring a touch of Grandma's kitchen tradition to your table, and trust me, they'll disappear fast. Chicken pot pie. Chicken pot pie is the ultimate comfort food, a savory treasure tucked beneath a golden, flaky crust that makes every bite a little celebration. For Grandma, this dish was a perfect way to turn leftover chicken and simple vegetables into a warm, hearty meal that felt like a hug on a plate. It's the kind of classic that filled kitchens with the smell of baking pastry and brought families together around the dinner table. This dish carries a legacy from rural kitchens and mid-century homes where nothing went to waste. The creamy filling, rich with tender chunks of chicken and garden vegetables, is encased in a buttery crust that crisps just enough to offer a delightful contrast to the smooth interior. It's a recipe that's both practical and indulgent, perfect for cold evenings when the warmth of a home-cooked meal is exactly what you need. To make it like Grandma's, start with cooked chicken. Rotisserie works, or leftover roast, shredded or chopped into bite-sized pieces. Sauté onions, carrots, and peas in butter until soft, then sprinkle flour over the vegetables and cook a minute more to create a roux, which thickens the filling. Slowly whisk in chicken broth and milk, stirring until the mixture thickens to a creamy sauce that hugs the chicken and veggies like a cozy blanket. Season with salt, pepper, and a pinch of thyme or parsley for a touch of herbal freshness. Pour this luscious filling into a pie dish, smoothing the top before covering it with a homemade or store-bought pie crust. Don't forget to cut a few slits in the crust to let steam escape while baking. Pop the pie into a hot oven, and as it bakes, the crust will turn golden and flaky while the filling bubbles gently beneath. The scent of baking pastry and simmering chicken wafts through the house, promising comfort and satisfaction. Once out of the oven, let the pot pie cool just a bit before serving. Each spoonful reveals tender chicken, sweet vegetables, and rich, creamy sauce beneath that buttery crust. Paired with a simple green salad or some steamed greens, it's a meal that feels like home, both humble and special. Chicken pot pie reminds us of a time when meals were about using what you had, but doing it with love and care. It's a dish worth reviving, a nostalgic classic that warms both body and heart, one flaky bite at a time. Sloppy Joes. Sloppy Joes are the quintessential messy, saucy sandwich that brings a smile to kids' faces and a nostalgic sigh from grown-ups. This dish is a classic mid-century favorite, easy to make, satisfying, and perfectly imperfect. For Grandma, Sloppy Joes were a quick fix on busy weeknights or a fun treat at family gatherings, where the tangy, sweet meat sauce could turn an ordinary meal into something memorable. Born from humble beginnings, Sloppy Joes take simple ground beef and transform it with a rich, tomato-based sauce that's both sweet and tangy. The name might conjure images of something unruly, but this dish is all about comfort and ease, served up on soft hamburger buns that soak up the flavorful juices. To make Sloppy Joes like Grandma, start by browning ground beef in a skillet, breaking it up into small pieces as it cooks. Once browned and drained of excess fat, add chopped onions to the pan, cooking until soft and fragrant. The magic happens when you stir in ketchup, Worcestershire sauce, a little mustard, and a touch of brown sugar, ingredients that create the perfect balance of sweet, tangy, and savory. Simmer the mixture until it thickens slightly, the flavors melding into a rich, saucy blend that clings lovingly to every crumb of beef. Season with salt and pepper to taste, then pile the hot, sloppy mixture onto buttered hamburger buns. The best part? Eating Sloppy Joes is a hands-on experience. The sauce inevitably drips, the buns get delightfully soggy, and everyone leans in for a bite that's messy but oh so good. Served with a side of crispy fries or a simple green salad, these sandwiches make for a meal that's both nostalgic and satisfying. Sloppy Joes remind us that sometimes the best dishes aren't about fancy ingredients or complicated techniques. They're about bringing joy and flavor to the table with what you have. This recipe harks back to a time when convenience met comfort, and families gathered around the kitchen table to share a meal that was hearty, affordable, and full of love. So whether you're feeding hungry kids or just craving a saucy, satisfying sandwich, Sloppy Joes are a recipe worth revisiting. A messy, delicious reminder of simpler times and family dinners that always hit the spot. Strawberry pretzel salad. Strawberry pretzel salad is one of those retro desserts that looks as delightful as it tastes. A layered masterpiece that combines crunchy, creamy, and fruity textures into one unforgettable dish. For many families, especially in the Midwest, this salad was the shining star of potlucks, holiday dinners, and Sunday gatherings. Grandma's recipe card, often stained and folded, held the secret to this nostalgic treat, a little slice of mid-century Americana wrapped in a glass dish. The charm of this dessert lies in its three distinct layers, each bringing something special to the table. The bottom layer is a salty, crunchy pretzel crust, the kind that snaps satisfyingly and balances the sweetness to come. The middle layer is a rich cream cheese filling, fluffy and smooth, lending a tangy creaminess that softens the crunch. And on top, a glossy, bright red strawberry gelatin layer studded with fresh strawberries. Bright, sweet, and a little bit tangy, bringing the whole dish to life. To start, crush pretzels finely and mix them with melted butter and a touch of sugar, pressing this mixture firmly into the bottom of a baking dish. Bake the crust briefly so it sets with a golden edge, creating the perfect base for the layers above. Next, whip together cream cheese, sugar, and whipped topping until light and airy. This creamy filling is spread evenly over the cooled pretzel crust, creating a luscious middle layer that's both rich and refreshing. The final step is the strawberry gelatin layer. Dissolve strawberry-flavored gelatin in hot water, then cool it slightly before folding in fresh strawberries, sliced or halved, for bursts of juicy sweetness. Pour this gently over the cream cheese layer and refrigerate until fully set. The gelatin's wiggle and shine make this dessert almost too pretty to cut, but once you do, each slice reveals those distinct layers, a harmony of textures and flavors. Strawberry pretzel salad is more than a dessert. It's a nostalgic journey back to kitchens where simple ingredients were transformed into something spectacular, a dish that brings smiles and memories with every forkful. Its sweet, salty, and creamy contrast reminds us of the joy found in mid-century creativity, and that sometimes the best recipes are the ones that combine a little bit of everything. So, if you're craving a dessert that's both fun and familiar, give this one a try. It's a sweet slice of history that deserves a spot on your table, a recipe that brings the past deliciously into the present. Scandinavian meatballs. Scandinavian meatballs, with their tender texture and creamy sauce, are a dish steeped in tradition and family warmth. For many American kitchens, especially those with roots in Northern Europe, these meatballs were more than a meal. They were a link to the old country, a way to bring cherished flavors and memories to the dinner table. Grandma's recipe card, slightly worn and folded, carried the secrets of a dish that was both simple and special, modest in ingredients, but rich in comfort. The magic of these meatballs lies in the mix of ground beef and pork, blended with breadcrumbs soaked in milk, finely chopped onion, and just a hint of warming spices, often allspice and nutmeg, that add subtle depth without overpowering. The result is tender, juicy meatballs that are perfectly suited to a creamy sauce that's the hallmark of Scandinavian comfort food. To make the meatballs like Grandma, you start by soaking breadcrumbs in milk to create a soft binder, then mixing them with ground meats, beaten egg, finely chopped onions, salt, pepper, and a pinch of those signature spices. Gently shaping the mixture into small round meatballs is part of the fun, each one a little promise of cozy dinner to come. Once shaped, the meatballs are browned in a skillet, creating a golden crust that locks in their juices. The pan drippings become the base for the sauce, a creamy blend of beef broth and sour cream thickened with a bit of flour. This sauce is rich and velvety, coating each meatball in a luxurious cloak of flavor. Simmering the meatballs gently in the sauce allows all the flavors to meld, resulting in a dish that's both hearty and delicate. Serve the meatballs over buttery mashed potatoes or buttered egg noodles to soak up the sauce, and garnish with a sprinkle of fresh dill or parsley for a pop of color and freshness. Scandinavian meatballs are a testament to the power of simple, quality ingredients treated with care. They speak of a kitchen where tradition and comfort met, and where a modest meal could feel like a feast. Bringing this dish back to your table is a way to celebrate heritage, warmth, and the kind of cooking that nourishes both body and soul. It's a delicious reminder that sometimes the most satisfying meals are those that come wrapped in creamy sauce and steeped in history. Borscht. Borscht is a vibrant, hearty beet soup that's been a comforting staple in Eastern European kitchens for generations. This deep, ruby red soup is more than just a meal. It's a cultural icon, steeped in tradition and memory. For many families, especially those with roots in Ukraine, Russia, or Poland, borscht was a winter warm-up and a celebration of simple, earthy ingredients, transformed by love and time. The star of this dish, of course, is the beet, which gives borscht its signature color and subtle sweetness. Alongside beets, other root vegetables like potatoes, carrots, and cabbage come together in a flavorful broth that's both tangy and rich. A splash of vinegar or lemon juice adds a bright note, balancing the earthiness and making each spoonful lively and fresh. To make borscht like grandma, you start by simmering beets and broth slowly to develop a deep, rich flavor. Chopped onions and garlic join the pot, filling the kitchen with savory aromas. Potatoes and shredded cabbage are added later, cooking just until tender. The key is to let the flavors meld gently, creating a soup that's full-bodied, but still light enough to refresh the palate. Seasoning is simple but essential: salt, pepper, and fresh dill, a fragrant herb that adds brightness and a touch of green to the vibrant red soup. A generous dollop of sour cream on top is tradition, adding creamy tang and cooling the soup's earthiness. Borscht is often served with hearty rye bread or garlic toast, perfect for dipping and soaking up the luscious broth. It's a dish that nourishes from the inside out, warming both the body and the soul. This soup is more than just food. It's a story in a bowl, a reminder of family kitchens where generations gathered to share warmth, culture, and comfort. Bringing borscht back to your table is like inviting a piece of history into your home, a delicious tradition that connects the past with the present. So, if you're looking to explore flavors rich in heritage and heart, give borscht a try. It's a beautifully simple dish that proves how humble ingredients, given time and care, can create something truly special. Pineapple upside-down cake. If there's one dessert that's synonymous with retro charm and simple pleasures, it's the pineapple upside-down cake. This golden beauty is a staple of mid-century American kitchens, a sweet celebration of caramelized fruit and tender cake that Grandma made with pride, and a little kitchen magic. The moment you flip it out of the pan, glossy rings of pineapple and bright cherries catch your eye, promising a bite that's both nostalgic and utterly delicious. The cake's story begins with canned pineapple rings, convenient, sweet, and perfectly shaped to create that iconic look. A sprinkle of brown sugar and butter forms a sticky, caramelized layer on the bottom of the pan, which becomes the top once the cake is inverted after baking. Maraschino cherries, with their vibrant red hue, nestle in the pineapple rings, adding color and a little extra sweetness. To make this classic, start by melting butter and brown sugar in a baking pan, letting it bubble and caramelize to form that luscious base. Arrange pineapple rings over the caramel, placing a cherry in the center of each for that signature look. Then pour a simple yellow cake batter over the fruit, light, buttery, and just sweet enough to complement the tangy pineapple. As the cake bakes, the fruit softens and the sugar bubbles, creating a sticky, golden topping that's as beautiful as it is tasty. The batter rises around the fruit, becoming moist and tender, soaking up those caramel flavors. The magic moment comes when you remove the cake from the oven, let it cool briefly, and then flip it onto a plate, revealing that glossy, jewel-like top. This cake isn't just a dessert, it's a slice of nostalgia, a reminder of birthday parties, potlucks, and Sunday dinners where simple ingredients came together to create something special. It's a testament to the joy of baking from scratch with just a few pantry staples. Serve it warm or at room temperature, maybe with a dollop of whipped cream or a scoop of vanilla ice cream for extra indulgence. Pineapple upside-down cake is more than just sweet. It's a sunny, cheerful reminder that sometimes the best desserts are the ones that bring a little sparkle to the everyday. Pickled beets. Pickled beets might not be the first dish that springs to mind when you think of Grandma's cooking, but these tangy, sweet, and earthy gems have long been a staple in her pantry. In many households, especially those with roots in farming communities or immigrant kitchens, pickled beets were a way to preserve the harvest and add a vibrant splash of flavor to winter meals. Grandma's jars of pickled beets line the cellar shelves, a testament to patience, preservation, and the gift of good food through the seasons. The magic of pickled beets lies in their balance. Earthy beets softened to tender perfection, preserved in a tangy vinegar syrup that's both sweet and a little tart. This combination brings out the natural sweetness of the beets while adding a bright zing that makes them irresistible as a side dish, salad topper, or sandwich accent. To make pickled beets like Grandma's, you start with fresh beets, boiled or roasted, until tender and easy to peel. Once cooled, the beets are sliced or quartered into bite-sized pieces, ready to soak up the flavorful pickling liquid. The pickling brine is a simple yet effective mix of vinegar, sugar, and spices, typically including cloves, cinnamon sticks, and allspice. These warm spices infuse the syrup, creating a fragrance that's comforting and festive. The hot brine is poured over the beets in sterilized jars, sealing in freshness and flavor. After sealing, the jars are left to rest for several days or weeks, allowing the beets to fully absorb the pickling spices and develop that signature, tangy, sweet flavor. The result is a beautiful ruby red jar of pickled goodness, ready to brighten any meal. Pickled beets were often served alongside ham or roast beef, their acidity cutting through the richness of the meat and adding a refreshing contrast. They also make a fantastic addition to salads or as a colorful topping on sandwiches and burgers. Bringing pickled beets back to your table is a way to connect with the tradition of thrift, preservation, and seasonal eating. It's a humble dish that carries the flavors of garden and cellar, sunshine and spice, all in one bite. So next time you want a side that's a little different, tangy, and packed with history, try pickling your own beets. It's a simple way to add a splash of color and a burst of flavor to your meals, and a little taste of Grandma's kitchen legacy. Chicken and rice casserole. Chicken and rice casserole is the kind of homey, no-fuss dish that Grandma could whip up on a busy weeknight and still make feel like a special occasion. This comforting casserole, creamy and satisfying, has roots in mid-century kitchens where simplicity met flavor and pantry staples came together in a bubbling, golden-topped dish that everyone loved. Picture tender pieces of cooked chicken mixed with fluffy rice and enveloped in a creamy sauce, often made from a can of cream of mushroom soup, an iconic ingredient of the era. Add a sprinkle of sharp cheddar cheese and a few more pantry staples, then bake until bubbling and golden, and you have a meal that feels like a warm, cozy hug in every bite. To make it like Grandma's, start by cooking your rice until it's just tender. While it's cooking, combine shredded or diced cooked chicken with the rice in a mixing bowl. To this, add cream of mushroom soup, a splash of milk to loosen the mixture, and some finely chopped onion for a bit of bite. Season with salt and pepper, then stir in a good handful of shredded cheddar cheese, which melts into the casserole, adding richness and a little tang. Pour the whole mixture into a buttered baking dish and spread it out evenly. For a golden, crunchy topping, sprinkle extra cheese or breadcrumbs over the surface. Pop it into a moderate oven and bake until the casserole is hot and bubbly and the top is beautifully browned. As it bakes, the creamy sauce melds with the chicken and rice, creating a comforting texture that's both hearty and smooth. The cheese topping adds a perfect contrast, crispy, salty, and just a bit nutty. Chicken and rice casserole is a reminder of the beauty of simple ingredients, combined with love and care. It's a dish that stretches leftovers and pantry staples into something satisfying and wholesome, perfect for feeding a family without fuss. Serve it with a crisp green salad or steamed vegetables to balance the richness, and you've got a meal that's both easy and elegant in its own down-to-earth way. This casserole is a true throwback to a time when dinners were simple, but made with pride, a dish that deserves a place on today's table as much as it did on Grandma's. Oatmeal cookies. Oatmeal cookies have long held a special place in Grandma's baking repertoire, filling the kitchen with the comforting aroma of cinnamon, brown sugar, and warm oats. These cookies are more than just a treat. They're a reminder of simpler times when homemade baked goods meant love, patience, and the joy of sharing something sweet and wholesome with family and friends. The beauty of oatmeal cookies lies in their hearty texture and cozy flavor. The oats provide a nutty chewiness that sets them apart from other cookies, while the warm spices, often cinnamon or nutmeg, bring a comforting warmth that feels like a hug in every bite. Whether studded with raisins, nuts, or chocolate chips, oatmeal cookies are endlessly adaptable and always delicious. To make these cookies like Grandma did, start by creaming together softened butter and brown sugar until fluffy and light. The brown sugar adds a rich caramel note that perfectly complements the oats. Beat in eggs and a splash of vanilla extract for that homey depth of flavor. In a separate bowl, whisk together flour, baking soda, salt, and cinnamon. Gradually add this dry mixture to the butter and sugar, blending until just combined. Finally, stir in plenty of old-fashioned rolled oats. These give the cookies their signature texture, and your choice of raisins, chopped nuts, or even chocolate chips. Drop spoonfuls of the dough onto a baking sheet, leaving space between each cookie, and bake in a moderate oven until the edges are golden and the centers are still soft. The smell that fills the kitchen is irresistible, a blend of toasted oats, cinnamon spice, and sugary sweetness. Once cooled, oatmeal cookies are delightfully chewy with just the right balance of crisp edges and soft centers. They're perfect with a glass of cold milk, a cup of tea, or just on their own as a little afternoon pick-me-up. Oatmeal cookies remind us of the joy found in simple, homemade comforts, treats that take us back to the kitchen counters where flour-dusted hands mixed dough, and the sound of the oven timer meant something delicious was ready to be shared. So next time you want a cookie that's both hearty and sweet, warm and nostalgic, reach for Grandma's oatmeal cookie recipe. It's a little piece of home you can bake whenever the heart needs a sweet, familiar lift. Cabbage rolls. Cabbage rolls are a labor of love, each one a little bundle of seasoned ground beef and rice, wrapped snugly in tender cabbage leaves, simmered in a rich tomato sauce until meltingly soft. For many families, especially those with Eastern European roots, this dish was a staple, a hearty comfort food that turned simple ingredients into something truly special. Grandma's recipe card, often worn and stained, holds the secrets to this timeless meal that brought generations together around the dinner table. The process of making cabbage rolls starts with blanching large cabbage leaves in boiling water until pliable and easy to work with. This step softens the leaves, making them perfect wrappers for the filling inside. The filling itself is a humble but flavorful mix: ground beef, cooked rice, finely chopped onions, garlic, salt, and pepper. Sometimes a touch of herbs like parsley or dill adds freshness, but the heart of the filling is the satisfying combination of beef and rice. Once the filling is prepared, it's spooned onto each cabbage leaf, then carefully rolled and tucked in to create neat parcels. These rolls are placed snugly in a pot or casserole dish and then bathed in a homemade tomato sauce. A blend of crushed tomatoes, onions, garlic, and a hint of sweetness from a dash of sugar or a splash of vinegar to balance acidity. Slow cooking is key. The cabbage rolls simmer gently for an hour or more, allowing the flavors to meld and the cabbage to become tender enough to melt in your mouth. The tomato sauce thickens and deepens, coating each roll with rich, tangy goodness. When served, cabbage rolls are a filling, comforting meal that tells stories of family tradition and kitchen patience. They're often accompanied by mashed potatoes or crusty bread to soak up the luscious sauce. Cabbage rolls are a true testament to frugality and flavor, taking simple, affordable ingredients and turning them into a feast that nourishes body and soul. This is food made with heart, a dish that carries the warmth of Grandma's kitchen to your table. So if you're ready to dive into a recipe that's both timeless and deeply satisfying, give cabbage rolls a try. It's a delicious way to connect with the past, one savory bite at a time. Clam chowder, New England style. There's something irresistibly soothing about a steaming bowl of New England clam chowder, a creamy, hearty soup that's as much a comfort food as it is a taste of coastal tradition. For generations, this chowder has been a staple in seaside kitchens and family tables, especially in the Northeast, where fresh clams and simple ingredients come together to create a rich, velvety broth that warms both the belly and the soul. Grandma's clam chowder recipe was one of those treasured classics, passed down and perfected through the years. It's not a quick fix, but a slow simmer that builds depth and richness. The broth is thickened with potatoes and cream, while tender clams lend their briny sweetness, mingling with the smoky notes of bacon and the soft bite of onions and celery. To make clam chowder like Grandma's, start by rendering bacon in a heavy pot until crispy and flavorful, leaving behind that smoky fat to build the base of the soup. Sauté onions and celery in the bacon fat until translucent, filling the kitchen with savory aroma. Add diced potatoes and clam juice or broth, letting the mixture simmer until the potatoes are tender and the flavors have melded. Then stir in fresh or canned clams and a generous splash of cream, heating gently until the soup is rich and velvety. Season with salt, pepper, and a sprinkle of fresh thyme or parsley. The key to a perfect clam chowder is balance. The cream should be rich but not overwhelming, the clams tender but not chewy, and the smoky bacon a subtle background note. The potatoes add body and heartiness, making each spoonful a satisfying experience. Serve clam chowder hot, with oyster crackers or crusty bread for dipping. It's the kind of meal that feels like a warm embrace on a chilly day, a reminder of coastal kitchens and family gatherings where food was simple, fresh, and made to share. Bringing this classic back to your table is a delicious way to connect with tradition and enjoy a timeless taste of the sea and home. It's a recipe that proves comfort can be creamy, savory, and unforgettable. Sticky toffee pudding. Sticky toffee pudding is one of those indulgent desserts that seems to wrap you in a cozy blanket of sweetness and warmth. Though it hails from Britain, this rich, moist cake drenched in luscious toffee sauce found its way onto many grandma's recipe cards, especially in households that loved a dessert with deep, comforting flavors. For those chilly nights or special occasions, sticky toffee pudding was the perfect finale, a treat that was both humble and decadent. The magic of this dessert starts with a moist sponge cake made with finely chopped dates, which lend natural sweetness and a tender texture. The dates soak in a little baking soda and hot water before being folded into the batter, creating a cake that's wonderfully soft and almost fudgy. It's a texture that feels like velvet against the tongue, rich without being heavy. While the cake bakes, the toffee sauce comes together, a glossy, buttery mixture of brown sugar, butter, and cream, cooked until thick and sticky. When the pudding is out of the oven, the warm toffee sauce is poured generously over the top, soaking into every crumb, turning the cake into a decadent, sticky masterpiece. Serving sticky toffee pudding is an experience in itself, often accompanied by a scoop of vanilla ice cream or a dollop of whipped cream. The contrast between warm, sticky sweetness and cold creaminess elevates the dish into pure comfort food heaven. This pudding is more than just dessert. It's a celebration of rich flavors born from simple ingredients treated with care. It speaks of slow afternoons baking in cozy kitchens, of family gatherings where indulgence was a rare but cherished pleasure. Bringing sticky toffee pudding back into the repertoire is a reminder that sometimes the best desserts are the ones that take a little patience and yield a whole lot of love. It's a recipe worth keeping close, one that warms the heart as much as the palate. So, next time you're craving something sweet and comforting, try this classic. It's a sticky, sweet slice of nostalgia that brings a touch of Grandma's kitchen magic into your home. Slaw salad with homemade dressing. Slaw salad, crisp, tangy, and refreshing, is one of those classic side dishes that Grandma always had ready to balance heavier meals. Whether it accompanied a summer barbecue or a cozy Sunday dinner, slaw brought a burst of bright crunch and flavor to the table. Simple, affordable, and endlessly adaptable, it's a dish that deserves to make a comeback in today's kitchens. The magic of slaw lies in its fresh, crisp cabbage, shredded finely to create a bed of crunchy goodness. Carrots add a touch of sweetness and color, and the dressing ties it all together. A creamy, tangy blend that's light enough to refresh the palate, but rich enough to complement the vegetables. To make Grandma's slaw dressing, start with a base of mayonnaise mixed with apple cider vinegar or white vinegar for that signature tang. A little sugar balances the acidity, while salt, pepper, and a pinch of celery seed add depth and complexity. The celery seed, in particular, is a secret weapon, lending a subtle herbal note that brings the dressing to life. Once the dressing is whipped together, it's poured over shredded cabbage and carrots and gently tossed to coat every crisp bite. The slaw is best if it sits in the fridge for a couple of hours before serving, allowing the flavors to meld and the cabbage to soften just enough while retaining its crunch. Slaw salad is incredibly versatile. It can be creamy or vinegar-based, sweet or tangy, chunky or finely shredded. But no matter the variation, it's always a welcome side that cuts through rich or fried foods with a refreshing crunch. Serving slaw alongside fried chicken, pulled pork, or grilled burgers adds that perfect balance of texture and flavor. It's also great as a topping for sandwiches or tacos, bringing brightness and bite. Simple, satisfying, and full of fresh flavor, slaw salad reminds us that the best sides don't have to be complicated. They just have to be made with care, using good ingredients and a little love. So, next time you want a crisp, tangy side that's easy to make and packed with nostalgic charm, give Grandma's slaw salad a try. It's a crunchy, colorful nod to classic home cooking that your family will thank you for. Banana bread. Banana bread is the ultimate kitchen comfort. Warm, sweet, and fragrant, it's the kind of recipe that turns overripe bananas into a beloved treat. For Grandma, banana bread was a way to avoid waste and create something delicious from what might otherwise have been tossed. It's a humble, homey loaf that's been a staple on kitchen counters and breakfast tables for generations. The beauty of banana bread lies in its simplicity and versatility. The bananas bring natural sweetness and moisture, giving the bread a tender crumb that practically melts in your mouth. Add a handful of chopped walnuts or chocolate chips, and you've got a loaf that's both rustic and indulgent. To make banana bread like grandma's, start by mashing ripe bananas until smooth. In a large bowl, cream together softened butter and sugar, then beat in eggs and vanilla extract for a rich, flavorful base. Fold in the mashed bananas, and then stir in flour, baking soda, and a pinch of salt until just combined. The batter should be thick but easy to pour. For extra texture and flavor, mix in chopped walnuts or your favorite add-ins. Pour the batter into a greased loaf pan and bake in a moderate oven until golden brown and a toothpick comes out clean. As it bakes, the kitchen fills with the warm scent of banana and vanilla, a smell that's synonymous with home and comfort. When the loaf cools slightly, slicing into it reveals a moist, tender crumb studded with nuts or chocolate, perfect for breakfast, snack time, or even dessert. Banana bread is more than just a way to use up fruit. It's a little loaf of nostalgia, reminding us of afternoons spent baking with family, sharing stories, and savoring simple pleasures. It's a recipe that's forgiving, adaptable, and always welcome. So next time you find a few too ripe bananas on your counter, don't toss them. Turn them into a loaf of banana bread. It's a taste of grandma's kitchen, warm and sweet, waiting to be shared. Chili con carne. Chili con carne is a hearty, spicy stew that's been warming family tables and filling bellies for generations. This dish, with its roots in Tex-Mex cooking, became a beloved staple in many American homes during the mid-20th century. For Grandma, chili wasn't just food, it was a way to bring people together, to share something bold, flavorful, and comforting after a long day. The beauty of chili lies in its simplicity and depth. Ground beef simmers slowly with beans, tomatoes, and a blend of spices, creating a rich, savory stew with a hint of heat that can be adjusted to taste. It's a dish that's both affordable and satisfying, perfect for feeding a hungry family on a budget without skimping on flavor. To make chili like grandma's, start by browning ground beef in a heavy pot, breaking it into small pieces as it cooks. Once the meat is browned and drained, add chopped onions and garlic, sautéing until softened and fragrant. Then comes the heart of the chili: canned tomatoes, kidney beans, and a mix of chili powder, cumin, and paprika. These spices bring warmth, earthiness, and a little smoky depth. Simmer the chili slowly, letting all the flavors meld together and thicken into a rich, hearty stew. Season with salt and pepper, and for those who like it spicy, a pinch of cayenne or a dash of hot sauce can add the perfect kick. Serve chili con carne with classic toppings like shredded cheddar cheese, chopped onions, and a dollop of sour cream. Cornbread or simple crackers make ideal companions, perfect for soaking up every last bit of the savory sauce. Chili is a dish that's as flexible as it is flavorful. It's been adapted countless ways over the years. Some like it with beans, others without. Some add peppers or even chocolate for a twist. But at its core, it's about warmth, comfort, and bringing people together. So, whether you're feeding a crowd or just craving a bowl of cozy, spicy goodness, chili con carne is a recipe worth making. It's a taste of tradition, a hearty meal that feeds both body and soul. Rhubarb crisp. Rhubarb crisp is a classic springtime dessert that sings of Grandma's garden and sunny afternoons spent baking with love. Tart, tangy rhubarb fills the bottom of the dish, bubbling beneath a golden, crumbly oat topping that adds just the right touch of sweetness and crunch. It's a simple dessert with humble ingredients, but one that delivers big on flavor and nostalgia. Rhubarb itself is a special ingredient. Its bright pink stalks are tart and tangy, offering a refreshing contrast to the sweet topping. For generations, gardeners have cherished rhubarb as one of the first harvests of the season, turning it into jams, pies, and crisps that bring a little sunshine to the table. To make rhubarb crisp like Grandma, start by chopping fresh rhubarb into bite-sized pieces and tossing it with sugar and a touch of flour or cornstarch. The sugar tames the rhubarb's natural tartness, while the flour thickens the juices as it bakes, preventing the crisp from getting soggy. The topping is a buttery mix of oats, flour, brown sugar, and cinnamon, combined until crumbly and golden. This oat mixture is spread generously over the rhubarb, creating a crunchy, fragrant crust that bakes to perfection. Pop the dish into a hot oven and bake until the rhubarb is soft and bubbling, and the topping is crisp and browned. The kitchen fills with the warm scent of cinnamon and caramelized sugar. a scent that's pure comfort. Serve rhubarb crisp warm, perhaps with a scoop of vanilla ice cream or a dollop of whipped cream. The cold creaminess pairs beautifully with the tart, tender fruit and crunchy topping, making every bite a perfect balance of flavors and textures. Rhubarb crisp is more than just a dessert. It's a sweet reminder of the changing seasons and the joy of baking from scratch. It's a recipe that's easy to make but full of heart, perfect for sharing with family around the kitchen table. So next spring, when rhubarb pops up at the farmer's market, bring home some stalks and give this classic crisp a try. It's a taste of Grandma's garden, bright and sweet, ready to warm your heart. Rice pudding. Rice pudding is one of those timeless desserts that has comfort and simplicity woven into every creamy spoonful. For generations, Grandma's kitchen was filled with the gentle bubbling of rice, slowly cooking in milk, sweetened just right and spiced with a whisper of cinnamon and vanilla. It's a humble dish that warms both heart and home, perfect for a cozy night in or a special treat after a family meal. The beauty of rice pudding lies in its simplicity. Just rice, milk, sugar, and a few fragrant spices come together to create a dessert that's rich, soothing, and endlessly comforting. Often, raisins or currants are stirred in, adding little bursts of sweetness that complement the creamy texture. To make rice pudding like Grandma's, start with a pot of whole milk gently heated and stirred with short grain rice. The rice cooks slowly, absorbing the milk and swelling into a thick, luscious custard. Stir often to keep it from sticking and to coax out that creamy goodness. Once the pudding has thickened, sugar is added, along with cinnamon and vanilla extract, giving it a warm, fragrant depth. Raisins or dried fruit are stirred in at the end, plumping up in the creamy mixture. Rice pudding can be enjoyed warm, right from the pot, or chilled for a few hours in the fridge, where it thickens further and develops a comforting, velvety texture. A sprinkle of cinnamon on top adds a final touch of warmth and nostalgia. This dessert is more than just a sweet ending. It's a recipe that's traveled through time, comforting families from one generation to the next. It speaks of slow, gentle cooking and the simple joys of homemade food. So next time you want a dessert that's easy to make but rich in memory and flavor, try Grandma's rice pudding. It's a creamy, cinnamon-kissed hug from the past, waiting to be savored once again. As we close this chapter on 30 recipes from Grandma's recipe box, it's clear these dishes are far more than just food. They're stories, memories, and traditions passed down through generations. Each recipe carries the warmth of a kitchen filled with laughter, the scent of love stirred into every pot, and the kind of simple, honest cooking that made family meals feel like celebrations. In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to forget the power of slowing down and savoring meals made from scratch, from humble ingredients that stretched to feed a crowd. These recipes remind us that thrift and creativity went hand in hand, that food was nourishment for both body and soul, and that cooking was an act of care and connection. Reviving these dishes means more than just bringing flavors back to the table. It's about reclaiming a piece of history, honoring the hardworking hands that shaped family traditions, and creating new memories inspired by the past. Whether it's the sticky sweet pineapple upside-down cake or the cozy hearty chicken and dumplings, these meals invite us to slow down, gather loved ones, and share in something timeless. So, dig through your own recipe box, dust off those handwritten cards, and give these classics a try. You might just find that a simple meatloaf or a bowl of cream-chipped beef can bring the kind of comfort and joy that modern food often misses. Here's to the flavors of yesterday, the kitchens of our grandmothers, and the delicious memories waiting to be made again, one bite at a time.